Дорогие коллеги, разрешите всех поздравить и поприветствовать на нашей большой конференции, юбилейной конференции в честь 50-летия нашего родного Аспрелла. Um, Let me express my welcome and heartfelt thanks to all participating in the ACTR 50th Anniversary Conference, whether as presenters, discussants, or attendees. The conference themes reflect many of the major concerns confronting our field and all those who study and teach the language today, as reflected by the very strong response our call for papers received from colleagues all across the US and from many countries of the world. The ACTR Anniversary Conference comprises a lot of presentations over a relatively short amount of time, so please take note of the summary guides on your program to assist you in quickly finding a session or a topic or a presenter that is of particular interest to you. The conference is also designed to encourage broad participation in the extended question and answer sessions, break periods, and reflection sections at the end of each day. I'm particularly looking forward to hearing our two keynote speakers, Dr. Judith Kroll today on bilingualism, and Dr. Suleimanova tomorrow on the language situation in Kazakhstan. We're thrilled that these two distinguished scholars are able to join us and share their knowledge of both of these timely issues for our field. In advance of our more focused professional discussions, and in response to the several articles that have been dedicated to ACTR's 50th anniversary, I wanted to use these opening remarks not to report on current research, as tempting as that is, but to share thoughts about the professional thinking and circumstances that contributed to the formation of ACTR 50 years, if you will, a kind of 50-year flashback from my own experience. It came down for me to a transformative exchange experience of a US teacher of Russian 50 years ago at MGU. As a newly hired PhD Slavic in the early 70s, I understood the multiple responsibilities expected of junior faculty. I was particularly pleased to be working at an institution, Amherst College, where good teaching as well as research was valued and respected. That said, the learning of Russian had its challenges. In particular, Russian instructors struggled with the acute shortage of culturally and linguistically authentic teaching materials, based clearly on the fact that we had no direct access to the target culture itself due to the closed nature of Soviet society. And I mean beyond Pushkin and Olga. These limitations were all the more apparent in light of the access and the abundance of culturally rich materials enjoyed by our colleagues in the French and the German and Spanish departments. That deficit of authentic language data was acutely experienced by our colleagues in linguistics, whose Russian language informants in this country were few and far between, primarily first and second wave immigrants. For them, the lack of reliable language data was a threat to the quality of the research that they were doing, and to some extent, the sustainability of the field itself. It was also a major limitation for the production of new teaching materials for Russian language students. I was therefore keen to participate in the 1972 10-week US-Soviet Summer Language Teacher Exchange, hosted by a few Fakr at MGU, a program and a tradition which, thanks to ACTR, continues to this day. Hosted now at Al-Farabi University in Almaty, several of whose faculty are participating in today's anniversary conference, including Eleonora Suleimanova herself. For me, the impact of these 10 weeks in country were truly transformative. Beyond the whole immersion experience in contemporary Soviet culture and language, the summer program brought our teacher group into contact with some of the most accomplished and inspiring teacher scholars of Russian in the field. Elena Andreevna Brizgunova, who patiently modernized my St. Petersburg Russian pronunciation, while introducing our group to her newly elaborated 6 intonational contours, ikaz, characteristic of contemporary Muscovite pronunciation. For us, totally new information. Natalia Andreevna Labanova demonstrated how Prague School theory, functional sentence perspective, could be applied directly to teaching Russian word order. Olga Petrovna Rasudova, resident aspectologist, was applying markedness theory to the study and teaching of Russian verbal aspect at a very granular level and with excellent practical results. And Vitaly Grigorovich Kostomarov and Evgeny Mikhailovich Vereshchagin who had just published the first edition of their monumental Язык и культура. Assuming the high interdependence of language and cultural knowledge, they argued that lingual cultural studies should be accorded the same level of importance in teaching Russian as pronunciation or grammar or reading or stylistics. I also learned that summer that Vitaly Kostomarov was heading a new center at MGU, to which he had lured a good number of other leading Russian specialists, who were interested particularly in the teaching of Russian as a foreign language, RKI. It was called at that time the Center for Teaching Methodologies as a Foreign Language for Russian, NMC pri MGU, and would soon become known as the Pushkin Institute. The center was a short ride on the number 22 trolley from the university metro stop, and the scholars there, which included a number of our own MGU faculty members and an academic superstar like Alexei Alexeyevich Leontiev, the renowned psycholinguist, were all remarkably open to conversations, to meeting with us, and discussing larger problems of teaching and acquiring Russian. For our part, members of the American group, mainly early career faculty, were eager to share their work and experience with their Moscow-based counterparts and to test our various pet hypotheses, some influenced by Jakobson's writings, some by Chomsky. Though at odds with my other postgraduate plans, the impact of the work that summer was huge on me. It was the motivation to consider how this work could somehow be shared more broadly with our colleagues in the US. Upon return home, the dialogue about the study and teaching of Russian during the summer of 1972 became the impetus for the founders to begin planning for a future meeting that would become the first Soviet-American conference on Russian in the fall of 1974. The kind of dialogue that the US organizers had in mind, however, would only work if we could convene persons of the caliber we had encountered in the 1972 summer program. For those who remember the Cold War years, name invitations by foreign organizations were not the norm. Travel to the US for Soviet citizens was exceedingly rare and often seen on the Soviet side as a reward of some kind. The plan that Dick Brecht, Erwin Weil, and I were proposing to invite 6 scholars by name rather than 6 generic scholars of Russian was looked upon with skepticism by many in the US for very understandable reasons. And also, by the way, by the scholars themselves, who were prepared and ready to cooperate, but doubted in most cases up to the last moment that they would ever ultimately be allowed to travel, let alone to the US. Our team, however, believed that the situation this time might be different. First of all, President Nixon and his National Security Advisor, Henry Kissinger, had just signed a protocol on cooperation with General Secretary Brezhnev in the spring of 1972, a document that would expand the parameters of US-Soviet cooperation in the fields of technology, space exploration, and cultural exchange. Our proposed joint conference on the study and teaching of Russian found favor with the US side because it pointed out a clear area where the US might benefit from the cooperation, and also on the Soviet side as being consistent with that nation's larger soft power aspirations as affirmed by the Central Committee. The resulting new intergovernmental agreement was narrow, to be sure, but it memorialized the importance of the study of Russian for Americans and the study of American English by Russians, also a breakthrough of sorts. And most importantly, it provided a legal basis for our conference planning, while also opening the door slightly for cooperation more broadly. The conference would focus on potential research collaboration at the intersection of the linguistic and pedagogical descriptions of Russian as a foreign language. But as our funders on both sides said, exchanges of ideas are good by definition, but ultimately the object of the collaboration has to be more than the exchange of ideas. It has to focus on the improvement of the quality of teaching materials, the quality of teaching itself, and the quality of our learning outcomes, hopefully ultimately contributing in some way to mutual understanding between our peoples. In 1993, as hoped, planning for the joint conference expanded to include planning for a collaborative textbook series, an idea discussed informally the summer before, as were explorations of opportunities for U.S. students to study in Moscow. The State Department liked the concept and the general direction we were taking, and made a small grant to Amherst College to support Dan and Dick's conference, as it was called, and also for hosting a proposed textbook co-author, Galina Betechkina of MGU, on our campus at Amherst for 2 months around the time of the conference. A call for papers went out for the SACRO conference in the fall of 1993, and arrangements on the Soviet side appeared also to be proceeding apace. My return trip to Moscow as a group leader for the summer teacher program in 1974 provided another opportunity to confer with our named conference delegates and press forward on planning for the collaborative textbooks. At that point, discussions of the participation of a very senior delegate to be added to our delegation was raised, not by me. I'm sure to minimize the exposure of the 6 named invitees, not sure. However, given the status of the question proposed, of the person in question, there was no objective basis on the U.S. side for not inviting him over, other than the fact that he simply wasn't on our list. And while it was clear that he held the fate of the event itself in his hands, we needed to tread carefully in dealing with this diplomatic issue. So we accepted this last-minute addition without any actual provisions in our budget for an extra person in the delegation. As you may have read elsewhere, to our great good fortune, the VIP in question ultimately did not make the trip, after all. Perhaps he never intended to. But all the name invitees, all 6 of them, did, and stepped off the plane at Kennedy Airport. All's well that ends well. And the conference SACRO 1 was a great success. The mood among the U.S. and Soviet delegates was keen for further cooperation. The event received rave reviews in both countries. Conference papers were published and circulated widely, and the stage was set for the incorporation of ACTR in late 1974, its first full board meeting taking place in January at the Statler Hilton in New York, the minutes of which have been kindly reprinted in the current issue of the ACTR newsletter. Having described in some detail the initial goals that ACTR was created to address, at a time when other organizations either lacked the interest or the expertise to address them, we'll now take a quick dash across a small, indeed personal selection of from the organization's massive 50-year photo history to recognize just a few of the persons and accomplishments related to our 3 big drivers of that time, all of which came down to collaboration in research, collaboration in materials development, and collaboration in on-site training. Bear with me, we'll look at the slides now. On the right-hand side, you see the original Soviet American Conference poster announcement. MIT, Kresge Auditorium, you can see the times and the dates. Section 2 at Amherst College in October of 1974. Pleasant relic. And the papers for the conference were published in 2 dedicated issues of Siege, as well as a dedicated volume you see before you there called Soviet American Russian Language Contributions, SACRO. That's the first one. This youthful photo is the arrival of our first Soviet co-author, Galina Andreevna Betechkina, who was a good friend. And there you can see her, a student of mine at Amherst, flew me down to JFK to meet her in person. It was difficult to get to Northampton and Amherst in those days, except by a private plane. We were lucky to have a student whose father owned an airport near JFK. Anyway, that's Galina's first arrival and the beginning of that textbook project. This is Olympiada that was one of the underlying activities that ACTR has supported since before our incorporation. overseen by the late Claire Walker. And there you see the actual International Olympiada. At the end of that, second from this side, is the American grand prize winner of the Olympiada, who came from Anchorage, one of the Anchorage school districts. Vitaly Kostomarov presiding over the Olympiada. And here is Claire Walker, the first American to receive the Alexander Pushkin Award. This was conveyed during Sacral II, 1981, hosted by Northwestern University. There you can see, and that's Claire Walker, who was from Friends Baltimore School. This is the volume. This is Soviet American Contributions 2, Sacral 2, 1981. There was a Sacral 3, but in between, there's a Sacral 3 in 1989, and then our periodic conferences shifted to, since it wasn't Soviet anymore, they became Montreal conferences, joint conferences with Montreal, that interlaced with the Montreal congresses that appear to take place each 3 to 4 years. The textbook series took a few years to accomplish. It was the first of its kind. We're proud of some of the things we were able to do in the 1970s, including making use of frequency dictionaries for the first time in an American textbook. We were honored to have Melodia quality recordings by some of the top voices available in the Russian media industry. They were made available on Gibkie Plastinki, something that probably no one on this call remembers except me, but they were good quality. They looked strange. And the first version of Russian Stage 1 appeared in 1980, despite the boycott of the Olympics, the invasion of Afghanistan, and the arrest of Andrei Sakharov that year. Everything pointed to a collapse of our collaboration, but it did not collapse. We kind of soldiered on. Let's keep going. They need to move pretty fast or we're not going to see. And Russian Stage 2 appeared in 1983, the second of the Soviet-American collaborative series with authors Baranova, Brecht, and Kostermina. Next. We'll just have to move as fast as we can. Yeah. Here we go. The Gibkie Plastinki gave way to compact cassette, as you can see, in 1983. They were surging into modernity here. The first American edition of Russian Stage 2 appeared in 1991. The first American edition of 1990. This is a joint publication and a revision of it. I'm just showing you some of the attempts here to, Russian, the total rewrite of the first Soviet-American collaborative textbook took place in 1998 with new authors, as you can see, and a truly video-based project that could only have been done with the help of Gosteleradio and access to local theater students and so forth. A number of you are aware of the Russian Stage 1, the Live from Moscow text. It was replaced in 2009 with Live from Russia. This is, notice the change, with additional support from Irina Dubinina and Tom Garza, who joined the author team in 2009. Let's keep going. This is Russian Stage 2, became Russian Welcome Back, and the authors, Irina Dolgova and the late Cindy Martin. And on the K-12 side, we were very pleased to see the development of this Basel series for schools. As some of you know, without a Basel textbook series published by a recognized American publisher, a school district will not adopt the language program. And we hope to address that issue by making sure that Russian had a Basel series that was on the same line and same quality as French, German, or Spanish. Russian face-to-face was pioneered by George Morris, Mark Betyutnev, and Lilia Vakhmina, all of the Pushkin Institute. So the collaboration goes on. Russian face-to-face level 2, Zita Dabars, George Morris, and Nadia Smirnova were the authors of that one. Thank you. And Mir Ruski, very popular volume used by at all different levels, is written for high school, Basel series for Russian K-12, Kendall Hunt publisher, Zita Dabars, George Morris, and Nadezhda Smirnova. I just want to sort of pay tribute to the people who put so much time in these books and kind of the textbook line of our projects that were all laid out back in 1973. Here's the Basel series video projects to we bet them doommates used both at college and high school level. Next. That is the last of the Soviet American conferences, which took place at the Brookings Institute in 1989 as the Soviet Union collapsed 2 years later, and our conferences took on a new format at that point. This is during the 1989 conference. There you see, I like this photo because it's you see Olga Petrovna Rasudova to the left demonstrating the textbook that she was working on at the time, and to the right is the Minister of Education, the Minister of Гособразования СССР, Gennady Alexeyevich Yagodin, one of the great reformers of Soviet-era Russian Soviet education. Here, I wanted to recognize Olga Danilovna Mitrofanova. She was a powerhouse at the Pushkin Institute. As I understand, oversaw between 80 and 90 kandidatsky dissertations and almost the same number of doktorsky dissertations. A powerhouse of a researcher and a thinker and a wonderful colleague to work with. She's at this in 1992 at Bryn Mawr College in an ACTR Montreal conference focused on functional grammars. Just paying tribute to Olga Mitrofanova. Here, I guess maybe you can see George Soros supported ACTR during these difficult years, beginning in 1987 all the way until about 2014. He supported ACTR programming quietly, and we certainly in the Russian field are grateful to Soros and the Soros Foundation for their years of quiet support of these programs. These three guys you will hear about later in the program. I'm just happy to honor Erwin Weil and Richard Brecht, and very happy to report to you that all three, that Erwin will be joining us later in this conference in person. This is a great moment. We mentioned Claire Walker's Pushkin Medal. In 1996, George Morris received the A.S. Pushkin Medal. Here's the ceremony conveying the medal at the Russian Embassy in Washington. This is a visit by Vladimir Mikhailovich Filipov, a later Minister of Education of Russia, who took part and opened in the opening of the ACTR Montreal Conference on Language Policy in 2003. That's in the Washington office here. And this is a wonderful moment that I would like you to just stare at for a moment, because this is the ACTR Special Service Award in 2009, being awarded to Vitaly Grigorovich Kostomarov for his decades of contribution to, well, just collaboration, but to the field of Russian. And behind him is the Librarian of Congress, James Billington. And next to me is then Russian Ambassador to the United States, Yuri Viktorovich Ushakov. And on the right side of the photograph is our beloved Lyudmila Alexeyevna Verbitskaya, former president of St. Petersburg State University and president of Montreal. Alas, Billington and Vitaly and Lyudmila are no longer with us. Next. And here's one of our a picture of Zita Dabars in the middle. Zita's a heroic and longtime member of ACTR, past president, longtime board secretary, textbook author, indefatigable organizer of summer training programs, teacher professional development programs, some of which we had the honor of sharing with her at Bryn Mawr. And here I want to turn the page finally to the student exchanges, because apart from research and conferencing and textbook development, student mobility was an important goal of our program from the very beginning. And here you're just going to see some attractive pictures of students, and then I'll tell you the final numbers. Keep going. These are fun, beautiful shots. Life in Moscow, life in Russia. Keep going. And we were able to do a survey of students in 2005, 2004. This is a survey of the careers of the first 25 years of ACTR students who studied abroad in Russia. This is an interesting source. If you don't know about it, it's very easy to get. Just go to the RLJ site and look at volume 55. There it is. But there you can see the careers. You can see, among other things, that the study abroad and the knowledge of Russian was critical in more than half of the employment decisions that these students made. You can see that it was responsible for promotions that they got. And I was encouraged to see that almost 45% of them said they still use the language in some way, even though many of them were frankly my age at the time when they filled out the thing. So if you're looking at career tracks and the impact of language study abroad on careers, there it is, the first early study. Next. These are the host institutions, beginning with the Pushkin Institute in 1975, and then you can see the new institutions that we've added over time. Al-Farabi Kazakh National University is our primary host right now for flagship, for advanced undergraduate, and for Nestle Y programming. A lot of excellent institutions, and many are represented at our conference today. Next. This is Senator Bill Bradley talking to students. Bill Bradley, as you know, is the author of major legislation that have contributed to exchanges that our students take part in. Next. And there are students visiting Washington. A lot of those photos can drown you in those. Keep going. Keep going. Keep going. Thank you. And finally, as of 2024, there were 110,000 American Council's alumni from 130 countries that have taken part in these programs, including 24,000 high school, undergraduate, and graduate alumni of the overseas programs, which began at the Pushkin Institute in 1975. 50 years hence, the demographics of our field, our board of directors, the membership of ACTR have changed much. And many of today's ACTR members were born in a Russian-speaking country, and some of them trace their initial connections to the U.S. to exchange experiences administered by ACTR itself over these 50 years. And as teachers of Russian in today's world, all of them find themselves bridging and mediating linguistic, cultural, and political differences that besiege this part of the world and all of those who care about it. The challenges faced by our profession today make the concern of my generation of Russianists about authenticity of language data pale in comparison, but certainly not the importance of collaboration. The experience of ACTR shows that it is ultimately the commitment to scholarship, the quality of teaching and learning, and to the field more generally that saw us through the crisis of 1980, of 1983, the fall of the wall, 1998, and 9/11. And they will see us through the present crisis as well. I am thrilled to extend a special word of welcome to this conference to our colleagues from outside the U.S., including those representing their respective nations in MAPRIAL, the International Association of Teachers of Russian Language and Literature. This year, 2025, marks the 50th year of ACTR's affiliation with the International Association. Thank you so much for your attention. I wish you all a productive set of meetings and discussions over the next 2 days. Thank you.
Спасибо большое, Дэн. Thank you so much. И, коллеги, я бы хотела вас всех поприветствовать сегодня на нашей замечательной конференции, уникальной конференции, посвященной годовщине юбилея нашей организации. So, and my task today, not only to welcome you, but also to tell you what's going on with our organization now, who we are now, and what we are doing now. So you would get a better idea of what we have accomplished over the past 50 years and in the recent years as well. So we have the executive committee that includes me, the president. I would like to thank my colleague, my friend, and the best supporter of the Russian studies field is Lee Roby, who is our vice president. Then Davidson is also on the executive committee in his role as executive director. And Susan Cresson is the secretary, Kristen Walsh is the treasurer, and Ben Rifkin serves in the role of our parliamentarian. We have an amazing group of colleagues on the board of directors, both from secondary and post-secondary settings, and I'm very happy to to share this information. I'm not going to name their names, but they're here. And this is the first half, and this is the second. So we have all these colleagues who have been working very hard over the past several years on improving our services, on improving our programming, and on contributing to the field of Russian studies. I would like at this point just to make a note that we have an amazing leadership over the past 50 years with Dan Davidson as the founding president, but all these people like Irvin Well, Don Jarvis, Elizabeth Nitro, Zina Dabart, Peter Merrill, Jane Shackleton, Robert Shannon, Betsy Sandstrom, Tom Garza, and Natalia Shakova, who helped to have this organization effective, flourishing, and who were leading the organization for all these 50 years. So if you already know about our organization, so you probably know what we were offering for over 50 years, or for 50 years plus, right? So we have 2 essay contests for both secondary and post-secondary students. We have 2 Scholar Laureate Awards, both for school students and college students. Also, ACTR is running Olympiad of Spoken Russian in numerous regions throughout the United States. Dan already mentioned about our Russian language journal, which has been publishing a lot of interesting issues, thematic issues over the past several years. And I would encourage you to check out the website and download the articles. They are free for you to read. We have the ACTR newsletter, in which we share all our news that are happening in the field. Also, the summer program for teachers and a Mueller proficiency exam for students. However, I'm also very happy to share with you that over the past 10 years, we have been adding a lot of new initiatives, a lot of new programs. And among those programs that we've been offering to our members and also to non-members as well, some programs are accessible to our non-members. And these are teaching awards, both for secondary and post-secondary teachers, as well as for graduate TAs. We have Olga Kagan Professional Development Fund to support any professional development opportunities. We started a new graduate student group, and ASEL is our representative. They've been organizing a lot of important events for graduate student members. We are already in the second year of our summer undergraduate internship, and we are very excited about working with our undergraduate students. And almost for, I would say, like 8 years, or even all like 9 years, we've been offering various webinars, roundtables, and teachers' lounges every month. Some of our new initiatives include also advocacy support and material development, K through 12 outreach, and the middle school sharing group, mentorship program for both secondary and post-secondary teachers and instructors, and also to improve our colleagues, especially those who are non-native speakers, language proficiency skills. We offer regular language meetups and summer and winter book clubs. So I'm very happy to say that all these programs have been very successful, and I'm grateful to all our colleagues, board members and non-board members who were running these programs. So today, the conference, as you know, we have 6 streams, and we have a full schedule with presentations. I wanted to tell you that we had a huge volume of proposals from 21 countries, and we have diverse representations today at this conference, both from schools and colleges, private community schools, language organizations, Defense Language Institute, etc. We also offered at our conference several interesting and very effective formats, such as roundtables, also 5-minute shareouts, or our regular paper presentations, and we will have an opportunity to attend our two keynote talks. One is today, right, following this session, and one will be tomorrow. So finally, the logistics. I just wanted to tell you that you are all staying in this breakout, in this main room. This is our main room, and you will be using the same link today and tomorrow. We have created breakout rooms, so each panel will be happening at this specific breakout room. You'll have a slide on the screen, and which will remind you the title of your panel and the room which you need to go to. In the main room, we'll have our opening remarks, our keynote addresses, also our tonight evening social and discussion. And tomorrow, at the end of the conference, we'll have our closing remarks and virtual reception. So just wanted to note that today share out 1 and share out 2 will be in the same breakout room. They will be share out 2 will follow share out 1. Otherwise, each share out section will have its own breakout room. We also wanted to tell you that we are recording our sessions, and these all your presentations will be posted on YouTube channel later on in the summer. Please notify the chair if you prefer not to be recorded, and our chairs will pause the recording during your presentation. And if you have any technical difficulties, any issues, you can find a person in the main room who can help you with some technology issues or can help you to find your breakout room. So finally, I wanted just to remind you that we today are going to follow our ACTR Code of Conduct. And I would like to read it right now. The American Council of Teachers of Russian is committed to providing a harassment-free environment in all of its meetings, activities, professional fora, and communications, whether in person or digital. The organization will not tolerate harassment in any form of our members or participants in ACTR programs, publications, or activities, including this conference. All members and participants in ACTR programs, publications, and activities are expected to uphold the highest standards of professionalism, collegiality, and mutual respect, creating an environment where all individuals are treated with fairness, dignity, and courtesy. Failure to meet these expectations may result in exclusion from ACTR activities and or termination of membership. And on that note, I would like to thank again everyone for coming here, for joining us for our anniversary conference today and tomorrow. And I hope that we'll have extremely productive and interesting panels and sections throughout today and also tomorrow.